All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. During this presentation, I'm going to ask that everyone remains muted with your camera turned off so we don't have any interference. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type them into the chat box so we can answer them. And also, just so you know, this webinar is being recorded. So with that, I will hand it over to Tabitha Hootman, going to tell us all about the turtle tracking that she was doing over the course of a year.
Yes, thank you.
My screen. Here you go.
We good?
Yes, you are good to go.
All right. I'm Tabitha Hootman, and we will be discussing today the turtles of Wekiva and the movements of the peninsula cooters and the Florida red-bellied cooters. This research was done with help of Jacksonville University, the Marine Science Department, where I received my graduate degree, and with the Turtle Survival Alliance, the North American Freshwater Turtle Research Group. Now what we all came here to learn about is turtles. We're going to learn about turtles found in this population, specifically the red-bellied cooters and the peninsula cooters. We're going to go through our methods, how we do this, but first, we're going to learn some biology. So the first biology is we're going to learn this top part of the shell is called a carapace, and we will be referring to carapace throughout this. The bottom part of the shell is called the plastron. These little individual pieces that you see here are called scutes, and the one on the ends are called marginal scutes. They have forelimbs, hind limbs, and of course their head or snout. That's the basic biology of a turtle. We're also going to know that turtles are among the oldest and most primitive reptiles, dating back to 240 million years ago from Papicles, which is termed the grandfather turtle. It might not look like a turtle to you, it might look like a large lizard, but it is related to the turtle because the ribs are fused, and this is when the plastron started forming here. Now, Florida is unique. In North America, we have 7 families of turtles, 18 genera, and 52 species. Florida in itself houses all 7 families, all 18 genera, and 27 of the 52 species, and 48 subspecies. Now you'll see parentheses around the species and subspecies because there is some confusion and debate continually going on about the taxonomic names of turtles. And this is an example of them. For our Nelsoni, our red-bellied turtle, and our peninsularis, this is an example of every name change that has happened since they were discovered. Some of it is species name changes, some of it is genus name changes. And this is due to a lack of data, a lack of convergent morphology and hybridization between the species, and inadequate fossil records. So even now you do see name changes. Florida peninsularis, the Floridina peninsularis, was actually right when I started this research. It was recognized as its own species, Pseudomys peninsularis. During my research, they renamed it to Pseudomys floridana peninsularis, which is what we recognize throughout this research. In Florida alone, we have 22 native freshwater species recognized. We have softshell snappers, chicken turtles, map turtles, sliders, spotted, mud and musk, cooters. For our purposes, we did not include the box turtles. Some scientists do, but since they are not fully aquatic, we have not chosen to add them into our native freshwater species. All of the freshwater species can be found, you can find them in swamps, ponds, lakes, streams, rivers, springs, even ditches. Even at my house, I have a ditch turtle. It's a nice little snapper that we have here. Any freshwater body can house freshwater turtles. So who lives in your backyard in the Wekiva? Our first one that lives here is what's called the three-striped mud turtle. You can identify them by the three stripes on their carapace. They have a 2-hinge plastron. So with that, they can close up really, really tightly here to avoid predation. These are some of the smaller US turtles. They have a high dome shell, and they are bottom dwellers. You also have the stink pot. They're recognizable from their nice, beautiful stripes on their head, and they earn their name, stink pot, Sternotheris odoratus. And we also have the loggerhead musk. Once again, they do earn their name. They are a musk turtle. Now these turtles, fun fact, can breathe through their tongue. They have a special adaptation that allows them to breathe underwater through their tongue. And it's the adaptation is some organs that have been found under their tongue to be able to transpire. Other turtles can breathe through their butts. Technically, they're cloaca, such as the eastern common snapper. These guys are very large turtles. They're large-headed. They're carnivorous. They cannot retract fully. They're kind of like little wrestlers. They do not swim quickly. They're not strong swimmers. They generally walk on the bottom. We also have the Florida softshell. They are carnivorous. They're fully aquatic. You'll see them buried in the sediment quite a bit. A lot of people see them as mean. I think they're misunderstood. Their name actually, Apolloniferix, means ferocious, and they pretty much do earn their name. They are also flattened, more flattened. And unlike the other turtles we will be studying in this, you see that they have a fleshy, leathery shell over a bony plate. They do not have the hard carapace that you see in a lot of our other species that we went over. They do have a fleshy snout that you can see. And I know we'll go over this in a little bit, but just for preliminary, because we don't go over what we do with the soft shells, if you see right here, the 94, we do to identify these species and to be able to give them a number, we tattoo our soft shells. And this tattoo stays with them just like it does with us, so we can identify them later on as we study them through the years. In our study, we also have, in Wekiva, we also have the chicken turtle. These guys get their names, they're mid-sized turtle, hard carapace. They get their names from their long chicken-like neck. Some people also say this net-like pattern on their carapace reminds them of chicken wire. And they have vertical stripes on their booty. And we also have the yellow belly slider, which also has vertical stripes. So you can distinguish these two from the Nelsoni, the red belly cooter, and the peninsula cooter by the vertical stripes. Extremely easy. Now then, the two that we'll go into more detail about, the Florida red belly cooter, and you can see they have broad red stripes on their carapace that go down and form into a Y shape. And the Florida peninsula cooter, Pseudomys peninsularis. These guys on their carapace have beautiful yellow wavy lines. And these guys are found throughout mostly the peninsula, Florida peninsula. The Nelsoni, however, do range up into South Georgia and have a coast separate population over in the Panhandle. And the furthest north they have been found recently, one was found in Jekyll Island. But primarily, they are generally found within the peninsula Florida, and the peninsula cooter, Florida peninsularis, is only found within peninsula Florida. Now I showed you how to identify them from the carapace. This one would be easy to identify. You could see the bars. but most of them have algae on their backs. So it's a little more difficult to identify them if you're going by on a canoe and trying to cite which ones you have. So we have other ways of distinguishing between the red belly and the peninsula cooter. Primarily, the red belly gets its name. It's a bright red-orange belly. And then the peninsula cooter is a pale yellow plastron. So that's one of the easiest ways to tell them apart. Another way is their smile. The Florida red belly cooter has these nice two cusps here adjacent to a singular notch, where the Florida peninsula cooter has a flat edge. The red belly cooter on the mandible, on its lower mandible, has two notches and one primary medial notch inside, are two notches with a primary cusp and two smaller cusps along the notches, where once again the peninsula cooter is flat. You can also identify each species by their head stripes. The peninsula cooter has what we call hairpins. These two come up to form little hairpins on the back of the head, which is void in the red belly. And now then, how to tell male from female. These guys are what we call sexually dimorphic. That means that the females generally, they can get much, much larger than the males, sometimes up to double their size. As you can see here, this is a very large female, and we have a typical male here. Here's a top-down picture of how much larger the females get than the males in these species. Another way to identify male from female are the claws on the forelimb. The males have these super long claws that they use to tickle the female during mating. The females have these very short, thick claws that they use to dig their nest. They also have differences in the placement of the cloaca. The cloaca is right here. The male's cloaca is going to be far extended to house the penis beyond the carapacial rim, which is the edge of the carapace rim right here. So you can always tell the males because their cloaca will be far extended by it, where the female cloaca will not extend past this carapacial rim. Their hatchlings are easily identifiable. You can see that the little peninsula cooters still have the hairpins behind their head. The nice, beautiful pale yellow plastron. And the Nelsoni are very, very bright, red-orange, brightly colored. Now, as they both age, they both do what we call, they carry melanistic traits. That means they get darker. So they will lose their yellow striping in their heads, their forelimbs, their hind limbs. So they will become darker as they age, losing that coloration in the stripes. They will also, on their plastron and on their carapace, develop this black splotchy area that is also a product of melanistic traits. And it will, you'll see the darker characteristics come out as they age. Now, both of these species, I hear a lot of people thinking they're going to eat their fish when they're fishing. These guys are herbivores. Fish are friends, not food. They do eat the vegetation, not the fish. Although when they are younger, they do eat insects and such as hatchlings, but as they grow older, they are strictly herbivorous. They do have several threats. The raccoons are one of the top predators. They will annihilate an entire nest. They will annihilate several nests in the night. Some of the research I have done, I have lost over 100 nests over a weekend by raccoons. Armadillos are other huge predators. As you can see, alligators are nice, good predators. Birds, otters, ants, fire ants will get them, especially the hatchlings. as they come out. Fish. Humans are their biggest predators, though. Between cars with females going and trying to lay eggs, or turtles moving habitats, boat strikes, and poaching, humans are by far their biggest predators. Humans not only do it directly, there's indirect predation and pressures from humans, habitat loss. You can see in the map here that the Central Florida area is one of the highest population densities. This leads to habitat loss, habitat degradation, because they're building so much and developing so much. You have reduced water flow, decreased recharge to spring aquifers. You also have reduced water flow due to the population increase. When you develop and people are concerned about their yards, and they put in fertilizers and pesticides, and the runoff of the nutrients and the toxins affect them. You get introduction of exotic species, environmental alterings such as turf lawns. All these affect the populations and are detrimental to their populations. Therefore, research at this particular site at Wekiva is crucial to understanding normal turtle population, but we can monitor anthropogenic effects and detect them. Not only all of this, their own biology plays against them. Because turtles have long lifespans, and these two species in particular can live over 40 years, it's very difficult for them to rebound from these population impacts. It takes a long time for them to reach sexual maturity, 5, sometimes 10 years. They only lay about 20 eggs per nest, and you got about a 1% survival rate of those eggs. So it's very hard for them to come back from any kind of impact. Females drive this population, and unfortunately, females are the ones hit hardest. When they poach, they take the largest females out for food. The females are the ones usually out laying the eggs, so they are more prone to predation from other animals, more prone to getting hit by cars to lay eggs. So you see a huge impact with the females taking the hit for most of them. Some misconceptions and consequences. These species, and for that matter, the Pseudomys genus, are among the least studied turtles in North America. They are the second largest genus of the Amididae family of turtles, but this is because they are perceived as common. Now, I caution you with the word common, because the most common vertebrate in the world was once the passenger pigeon, and now it's extinct. Turtles are now the most threatened vertebrate in the entire world at 51%, even surpassing primates. So what's common now could be extinct tomorrow. Now, how this research started, it started in 1999 at Wekiva Springs State Park. It was an underground research experience at Penn State University. In 2010, we joined the Turtle Survival Alliance and became NAFTURG, the North American Freshwater Turtle Research Group. And our goal is long-term monitoring of turtle populations in North America. Wekiva Springs was our first study site. This is the swimming area. We get turtles in here, come out through here where the boat launch is, come down through the natural lagoon. This is our main spot. And then we go up through the lagoon into the run, where we also capture turtles for our study. This started in 1999, so we have been doing this over 20 years now at this site. Our goals are long-term monitoring of turtle populations by extension and study site, and by extension, the study site ecosystems themselves. So we estimate population sizes, densities, survivability over time, sex ratios, health. We collect all sorts of morphometric data for growth and health analysis and to monitor every bit of the population. Now then, we went from that small Penn State study to we have volunteers from 28 states and 5 countries. We have over 600 volunteers in our group. We do research in Florida, Texas, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Costa Rica, and we are adding this year Belize. In 2015, we brought on Kelly Park, Rock Springs Run. Since we brought on Kelly Park and Rock Springs Run, we now have over 9,000 captures, 4,000 marked turtles, which Wekiva is one of the largest turtle assemblages studied. It has the highest population densities, biomasses, and survivability estimates ever recorded for freshwater turtle species in the state of Florida. But when we took on Kelly Park, we found that turtles we had originally caught at Wekiva Springs State Park were there. And that is a 12-mile upstream distance, which is unheard of for these guys. So we were wondering, where are these guys going? How far are they traveling? Over what time frame? Why? Are females moving greater distances? Are males moving more? Are they aggregating in cohorts? Are there migrations? What is going on in driving this? Because this is unheard of in the literature. So we set new goals. For this particular study, we denoted distance traveled. We estimated home range. We explained pauses in the capture history of individuals of this population. Throughout, we noted biotic or abiotic factors that may influence movement. We noted habitat preferences. We set groundwork for seasonal and/or migration studies, and we assisted in determining habitat requirements and the specific critical habitats required to maintain these species. So how do we monitor this population? How do we monitor movement? Because we love our turtles. Well, first we get this big crazy group of people who love turtles just as much as we do. And then we put them in the water for hours to catch turtles. And we go in and catch lots of turtles, and we put them up and give them to our people who are in canoes. And we gather all the turtles we can in the lagoon, in the run, and in the swimming area. And then we take it up to a central site for processing. By processing, what we do is we sex and palpate the turtles. So we determine if it's male, female. We determine if the females are gravid, which means carrying eggs. We measure their carapace length, which is what Eric is doing here. We measure their carapace width, their shell height, the plastron length. We weigh them, we mark them, we give them a little hard mark on their marginal scutes, which is what he's doing here. We give them a pit tag, which is, we'll explain, but that's what I'm doing here. We give them a nice little microchip, and we know any injuries or abnormalities. When we mark them, we use a variation of Kegel's marking system. So we use a variation of these numbers and a combination to give a unique number to each turtle, so then we can monitor it from then on. But as you saw in one of the pictures back, they get damaged, whether by boat strike, hit by car, alligator. So we could have damage to these, which would mar the number that we put on them. So we have a second identifier, which is a pit tag. This is a passive integrated transponder. So it is about the size of a rice trip. You put it into the right bridge, so right above the right back leg, and then we read it. And it's just like a microchip for your dog. It gives us a unique 15-digit ID number that gives us 2 ways of identifying this turtle. So no matter what happens, we can always identify this turtle. And to monitor movement, we put on Hollow Hill AI2F transmitters. They're about the size of your thumb. We put them on the back of, right above their back left leg, so it wouldn't interfere in any kind of movement or activity they might have. We bolted it upside down. We drilled holes through the marginal carapace, bolted them down. We sealed anywhere that they might have a stick or a limb or any kind of impedance with that could either damage the turtle or hurt them in any way. So we sealed it off, and then we let them go. to tell us their story. And they swam off and they told us the story. So we traveled the entire Wekiva River, the National Wild and Scenic River. It is approximately 10 miles from here to here. So we would start one weekend at Kelly Park, travel all the way down through Rock Springs Run. We would go down into Wekiva Springs State Park, monitor turtles there, come back up, and then get out around Wekiva Island. The next weekend, we would get in at Wekiva Island and go all the way up to the St. John's, about 16, 17 miles, and monitor turtles up in that section. We did this by using a 3-element Yagi antenna attached to a receiver. And with this, as you can see, we would get as close as we could to the turtles without disturbing their normal behavior, and we could actually pinpoint and sight the turtle and get their very accurate location. We did this rain, shine, cold, it didn't matter. We were out there every weekend. And then we wanted to see where these guys were taking us, so we followed. We put it on a map. These are 6 months and a year. At 6 months, this map on your left, you can see we had up to this point right here, actually up to this point. This girl right here is the one that was released in Kelly Park, and this boy right here was released from Wekiva Springs State Park. So we had some overlap there, but these were what we saw at 6 months. And now mind you, this girl came way up here. After a year, you can see this entire river practically is used. They use that entire ecosystem up to the 46th bridge. I'm going to show you the top four turtles, but the one for each sex, for each species that we had the best results from, or the highest results. This is our female peninsularis, our peninsula cooter. She was released here July 26th. August 4th, she was found up here, a minimum of 9 miles. Now I want to know at this point that in the literature before we saw this, they estimated ranges for these turtles being 650 meters for this species and 120 meters for the nelsoni, the red belly. So this is 14,000 meters she traveled in less than 2 weeks. Over the year, she traveled 15 miles, 24,000 meters. Our male peninsularis, he traveled from here. He went up into this area of Rock Springs Run, hung out for a few months, came back down, went back up here, hung out up here for a while, came back down, went back up here. He traveled, he had 4 large movements of 3 to 7 miles each, which is approximately 11,500 meters, not 650, and total about 22 miles throughout the year. Now our red bellies, our female, she traveled 6.5 miles in her first month. So her first month, we released her here. She traveled all the way around here and came down here. And over the years, she traveled about 15 miles. She made, in that first year, a trip here, a trip back, a trip here, and a trip back. Our male nelsoni, our male red belly, also made 4 large movements, 3 to 5 miles each, and he traveled 19.5 miles throughout the year. And his was mainly from here up the Wekiva River and back down. So going upstream, downstream doesn't seem to bother them either way. Seasonal didn't seem to bother them. And I'm not going to go into the boring statistics and all that, but I do want to show you guys that this right here And mind you, 200 meters, I believe, is approximately 0.1 or 0.2 miles. So the most you're seeing is a 200-meter difference between these two-ish. But there are segments between locational distance. So between each time I got them was at most, or at least 325, and at most, yeah, you're looking at 550, 560, which is significantly, not significantly different statistically. When you're looking at the longest segment between locational fixes, they're all ranging about 2,500 between locational fixes. Their mean total movement was around 10,000. Their mean range is between 2,500 and 3,000. So these turtles right here, these four have a history of being caught at Wekiva Springs State Park. When we caught them for the movement study, we caught them at Kelly Park. So we tracked them, and that is a 16,000 meter journey. If you took their mean movement, they could have made that travel upstream anywhere between 15 and 67 days. If you use their longest segment that they travel, they could have made that journey 16,000 miles upstream in as little as 2 days. Some of the trends we saw were females may travel longer distances than males, that males appear to make more consistent longer segments than females, males travel more, demonstrating higher total distances, and females exhibit longer maximum ranges. Now, mind you, this is the first year of this still, so what we are learning, and what does it mean? We know these riverine turtles have the potential to travel larger distances than previously noted, but the extent of the movement is still unknown, because we went out once a week, and even though we saw quite a bit, we don't know their fine scale movement. We don't know how far they really did travel. They could have went further and come back. We know this is their minimal movement. There appears to be no single or combination of factors that influence movement in this population. They travel just as much in the spring as they did the winter. If it was raining, we still saw movement. We did not see any population, people out there at Wekiva and on the river kayaking during the summer. Nothing seemed to influence their movement. The strong variation seen in movement in the Wekiva River system within the sexes and species grouping, the seasonal and maturity levels indicate that the movement is random and individually based. So this explains the paucity in the population data. So when we're doing our study in our limited range, they could be just outside it or way outside it and come back the next day. I also noticed within doing this study, they prefer open areas with little to no canopy. We think the areas with a thick canopy are likely used as corridors rather than habitat. No radio tag turtle was found north of State Road 46 Bridge. There's 3 reasons I think contribute to this. The salinity increases from a maximum of 2.3 parts per thousand south of the bridge to 0.78 parts per thousand north of the bridge. You also see a large presence of large size alligators increase, some obtaining sizes to predate on large Sudanese turtles. And the habitat changes to a cypress swamp forest. There's sparse aquatic vegetation that's creating a decrease in the availability of food resources and a decrease in open areas of free canopy. We found that the mean range, so the distance between the longest dots, so the longest linear movement total, is about 2,857 for the Nelsoni, the red belly, and for the peninsula cooters, it was about 2,843. So we propose a 2,850 meter linear range for this species. We know this is an underestimate because it's located, the located data presents minimal movement. It's not their full movement. The full extent movement requires continued data collection. We do know that larger areas are required to protect and conserve these species and other freshwater species than we previously thought. Conservation plans must consider habitat throughout the species' life history, not just part of it. Even over a year, we're still just seeing a snapshot of this. This study revolutionizes how we look at habitat management, not for just these two species, but for other freshwater turtles, which may share the same movement characteristics as demonstrated here, and thus require a more protected area for conservation. Moving forward, we plan to continue to track consistently over several years. And we are already integrating GPS loggers to identify fine detail movement and nesting areas. You can also make a difference. You can be a part of this. You can sponsor a species or a project. You can get involved in TSA volunteer events, such as our sampling events. Involve your staff. Equipment and material donations are always appreciated. Small grants are always appreciated. And join TSA NAFTRG. Anytime you join TSA NAFTRG, the money helps support our research directly. Join the force that's preventing turtle extinctions around the world. And another fun fact to leave you with, butterflies drink turtle tears. I want to thank everybody involved in this, Disney Conservation Fund for providing the original grant that provided much of the equipment. Friends of Wekiva River helped provide grants. Marine Science Research Institute provided grants. Protect the Florida Springs provided grants. King's Landing and Wekiva Islands supported us with logistics. I cannot tell you, DEP and Ashley was huge help. The aquatic preserves were help. We couldn't have done it with all of our many donors who helped throughout this entire research. It was a lot of work. And I want to give a very special thanks to Sherry Force and Rory Trimbour and Kenny Eads, who put in a lot of hours with me out every weekend. Rain, shine, cold, they were with me and tracking turtles. And it was a lot of work, and I could not have done it without my team. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Tabitha. Does anyone have any questions? If you have any questions, you can either type them in the chat box or unmute yourself if you want to. And while everyone thinks of their questions, I'm going to go ahead and share a closing out slide, and I'll put some information in the chat box if you want to register for any of our upcoming webinars as well. We have other things going on throughout October for the Wekiva's 20th anniversary. Next weekend, we will be paddling on Blackwater Creek, and I still have some spots available if you want to join for that. That is a bring your own kayak or canoe paddle, but you can register on Eventbrite for that. And next weekend, we'll be hearing from Florida Springs Institute about their Springs Watch program on the Wekiva. On the 17th, we have a history of protecting the Wekiva River with Deborah Shelley, the former aquatic preserve manager. And then on October 24th, we'll be talking about Florida native plants and how that can impact the river. And we'll also have a river cleanup on October 25th, sponsored by Wekiva River Outfitters. So if anyone wants to hop on Eventbrite, you can check out those